Hello guys! In this video, I will show you on how to use the select statement in Ionic. So let's start. So we have here an empty project. So we'll be placing the ionselect on our or inside of our container. So first, we'll be using the ion item and then slash ion item. And then we'll be adding the label ion label slash ion label, and then in our label we'll be adding the text gender, for example. Then afterwards we'll be using the ionselect and then inside of our ionselect we'll be adding the ion select option for the choices. And then we'll be adding here the male value, then female. So in here we'll be specifying its value, for example that is male, then the value is female. And then let's try to check our output. Okay, run S, and then we have this example. Okay, so if you select our select component, it will prompt an alert dialog. So we have here our options that we specified, so male and female. Okay, we can also change we can also add a placeholder of our application. So for example, placeholder then specify, for example, select gender, example, and then let's just wait. Okay, so we have a placeholder at the right of our or beside of our label. So as you click, it will pop up the dialog. So there are three options on how are you going to present your select component. So by default, it will display like an alert dialog. Okay, so that's the default interface or presentation of our component or our select component. So you can change that. Okay, actually you have three options. Okay, number one is the alert, that's the default. Number two is the action sheet, and then number three is the popover. So let's try to use those three. So we are able to use the alert, which is the default one. Now we'll be changing that. So in our ionselect component or tag, we have an attribute which is the interface. So as I said, the default value is alert. So let's try to use the action sheet. Okay, and then let's check what will be the output of our select component. So let's try to click this one, and then we have this kind of select. So okay, so this one is an action sheet. Okay. So the other one is you can use the popover. Okay. So popover. Then let's wait and then click this component, and then the output will be this one or will be like this. Okay. So as you can see, it's different from the default one, which is the alert. So if you're gonna specify the alert, and then this will be your output. So it's like an alert dialog. Then there are two options. There are two buttons, which is the cancel and the OK. Okay, cancel and the OK button. So you can select, then click the OK, then automatically the mail will be selected. You can also select email. You can also cancel it to hide the dialog. So that's the three interface for your select. So you can choose whether you're going to use the alert form or the popover or the action sheet. Okay. So this example, okay, so this kind of select statement or select is a single selection. Okay. So you can also enable multiple selection on your select or to your ion select. So this one is a single selection. Okay. So if you're going to create a select statement that allows you to select multiple choices or options, you can do that in our ion select by adding the attribute multiple, and then you set up to, or you set the value into true. So let's create another example of ion select. So we'll be copying this one. Okay, we'll be copying the whole first select component. Then we'll be changing this into color, and then the placeholder is please select colors, for example. And then let's say, for example, this one is red, this one is green. Okay, so we'll be changing that into red. Of course, the value, it's not male. Then green, then let's say yellow, the other color, yellow, then yellow. In here we'll be adding an attribute which is multiple, and then the value is into true. And then let's check the output. I'll just refresh the application, and then as you can see on our gender, we use radio button. So in radio button by principle, okay, so you can only select one, but in here you can select multiple values because they will be in multiple will be using the checkbox, and in checkbox you can really select multiple values. So you can check 2 or the 3 or all of them. Okay, for example, we choose red and yellow, then click OK. The value will be red and yellow in an array format. Okay, so you can also specify the default value of your application. So let's say, for example, for the gender, the default value is male. So you can try that by adding an attribute here which is value and equal sign to male. So that becomes the default value for our gender. Okay, so as you can see, by default, the main value is selected. Okay, then another thing is, how are we going to get the value of this, of the ion select or the select component? Okay, how are we going to get the value of this? What is the value selected by the user? For example, the user selected female, then you select that, and then you click the value to save that gender. How are you going to know or to get what the user selected on our select? So that is our next thing that we are going to do. So we'll be adding a button here, and then once the user click the button, it will display the value of the gender, whatever the user selects, whether that is male or female. It will display on a, let's say for example, on a toss message. Okay, so let's try that by adding a button. So ion button, then ion button, and then afterwards there will be, okay, for example, let's say just save. Then we'll be adding a click event, which is the, let's say for example, save. Okay, so let's say save record. Okay, this will be our button to get the value of the, or just to demonstrate on how to get the value of the select in, especially in Vue. So we'll be adding the ion button here, and then we'll need to add that onto our component ion button. We also need to add the ion select. Okay, ion select. Then first we'll be adding it here on our components, because we'll be manipulating that, or we'll be getting the value of the ion select. So next is we'll be adding the methods. Then so the method that we are going to use, which is the save record, and then okay, next is how are we going to use or to get the value of this select component. So in here we'll be defining it. So we'll be binding the value attribute. Then we'll be specifying here the gender. Okay, so next is we'll be adding the, for example, we'll be adding the data to initialize our, okay, so we're going to initialize the value of gender into, let's say for example, empty. And then in here, for the meantime, we'll be displaying that in our console, or okay, we'll be defining a toss message here. So we need to define or specify our toss controller. Okay, and then after that, in here, just like on our previous video, especially in creating a toss, we need to use the asynchronous statement, and then we'll be defining a variable, for example, variable toss is equal to await the toss controller, then the create method of the toss controller, so wait, controller, then the create Okay, so maybe we have a problem here. Let's toss controller dot create thing. Toss controller. We have a toss controller here. Okay, so it's already rendered on our IDE. Then the first attribute of that is the message. Okay, then specify the message. So we're going to display the value of the gender inside of the message. Then toss that percent. Okay, so for the meantime, let's add your gender is. For the meantime, let's just make it blank to test our source code for the meantime. Okay, so let's try to refresh our application. Then try to click the save button. So okay, it's working. We are able to display the value or the toss message. Now we'll be adding we'll be displaying through our toss the value of the gender that the user selected. So once the user click the save, it will prompt you the gender. For example, your gender is male. Okay, so in here will be so concatenate the value of the gender. So we'll be using the gender gender. So whatever the value of the gender select component will be displayed on our toss that we created. So let's refresh. Then let's try that. But this one it's not yet displaying the male. So we'll still add some codes so that we could display the value of the gender. So in here there is an attribute which is called the at ion change. It's equal to so on our at ion change, we'll be adding the value which is gender is equal to $sign event that target that value. So meaning to say, once the user changes the value of the gender or our select component, this will be triggered, and the value of gender will be changed depending on the value that depending the option that the user selected. So let's try that. Okay, and then let's try to refresh our application. And then let's say for example the user selects male, then let's try to click the save. So we're able to get the value which is male. Another one is once the user selects the female, then let's try to click the save. Okay, so I think we need to refresh that. Let's try to select the value of female, then save. So we're getting the value of the female. So we'll just add duration so that we can test our application properly. So we'll be adding a duration colon say 2000 s, and then let's try to refresh our application. Then let's try that. So female for first time, we'll be selecting the female, save, then male, okay, save. So we're getting the correct value. Okay. So I think that's all for our ion select component. Thank you for watching. See you on our next videos.